Okay, so this video is going to be for the two basic stitches, running stitch and back stitch. So as you can see, I've got just a piece of scrap felt. I've got my needle and thread. I haven't tied a knot in the wrong end because I'll show you what to do with that later. But for now, we'll just do the stitches. I've got it doubled over through the needle just a little way, and I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start at this side. I find it easier to sew that way. For a running stitch, your needle literally goes down into the fabric and it comes back up like that. For now, I'm not going to anchor the thread, I'm just going to show you the stitch, and then I'm going to go down and up, and there you can see the stitches are starting to form. Now I'm trying to keep my stitches and my gaps fairly similar, so they're about even. Obviously you could alter it and make your stitches much bigger than your gaps if that was the effect that you wanted. A bit like that. I'm not sure why you'd want to do it the other way around, but obviously you could reverse it and make the stitches very small and the gaps very big. A bit like that. But this is basically running stitch, down and up and down and up. And the reverse side looks like that. So it should be as neat on the front as it is on the back. You can, of course, go down. If you need to see where you're coming up, you can turn it over and look for where you're going. But once you get the hang of it, you'll just be using your fingers beneath the fabric just to feel where to push the needle back up through like that. So there's running stitch. Okay, I'm going to pull all that out. And this is back stitch. So again, just for the sake of the demo, I'm not going to anchor the thread in the end. So you start in the same way as back stitch. There we are, making your first. It's gone down and up, but then I'm going to go back down the first hole, and that will make a stitch there. You could pull it through at this point. Like that. And have a look at the back if you need to see the back. I generally don't turn my work, I know where I'm going. So you're again going to make your stitches as even as possible, coming up a stitch length ahead of where you last sewed, and then you're going back down the hole before, and then underneath my needle is reaching forwards, and it's making the stitch behind itself, which is why it's called back stitch, because you're always going backwards. Now, to be honest, this is much easier with smaller stitches. I'm slightly struggling because my stitches are so enormous. There. And so what you end up with is basically a line, not a very straight line, a line of stitching like this. It's really good for things like outlining on embroidery. Your front is really neat, but your back is much more messy. Definitely the wrong side, so you can really tell which is which. Trick, of course, is not to pull too tightly, because if you start to pull tightly, you'll gather up your fabric. So keeping a nice even tension helps you get a good effect on the front. You can pick up the speed, obviously, if you're doing smaller stitches like this. It works up much faster, and you can with smaller stitches as well, you can start to turn corners. So for things like embroidering initials on things, this is a really good one to to start with. And then to finish, obviously, you just go back down and fasten off at the back. So those are your two basic stitches. Running stitch, which goes up and down all the way along, and back stitch, which loops backwards all the time and then reaches forwards underneath on the wrong side. I hope that helps.